What I'm going to show right now is the four-stage defect rectification work process that was developed for Gamuda land. First thing we'll do, going from the iPad, I'll select View Plans. That will show in our trial site the various sites where we are going to be doing inspections and collecting defects on behalf of the purchaser. So I'm going to start out by navigating into Block B, and I'll select Unit B1. And in Unit B1, you can see that there are two defects that have already been created. In this case, in the ceiling, there is a missing light fixture, and in another case, we've got a noisy ceiling fan. So now I'm going to proceed to inspection, and you'll notice in the upper right-hand side that there are two boxes. One is for the pins that snag the defects, and the right is for inspection. Going to inspection mode, on the upper right, this is for the overall site, so I'm going to select this unit site, and you can see that I've already created a defect rectification work inspection. So I'll just open that up, and you'll see the workflow there, starting with inspection, which is capturing all the defects and getting a sign-off by the user, then moving to completion notice, which will collect further remedies to the defect and is being used to communicate to the purchaser that the work was completed. And if that doesn't get action, there'll be a second and final notice by the users for Gamuda to notify the purchaser that the work has been completed and they may accept. In the final step, you'll see an acceptance notice. This is a form that the purchaser would actually sign off on to show that the work has been completed. But now let's start with the inspection itself. If I see in the upper right hand, there is a plus sign. Comment about that. You cannot jump from one stage to the other without completing the first stage. So this shows that that first stage has not been completed. So if I click on that plus sign, it brings up the form. There's already been a defect rectification notice or a DNF number assigned, number 81. It was dated July 29th, and we're going to identify the defects, and you can see the purchaser's name, Alex Wong, and the CMD representative. So next thing I need to do is attach the defects to the form. So you'll see on the lower right-hand side there is a representation of a pin on a map. If I click on that, you'll see that there's no defects have been listed yet. So when I hit the plus arrow, it brings me back to the site, and now I can see those two defects that we mentioned earlier. And if I zoom in, you'll be able to see when I click on these, you'll see it subtly change color. That shows that it has been attached to the form. I go to the upper right, I click Done, and now when I go back into the inspection hitting the plus arrow, I can see the two defects that we've just captured. So now I go back into the form, and there's a mandatory field where I identify the number of defects. In this case, it's 2. And now I've got a place for the purchaser to sign off on. So we'll just call that purchaser. And then a sign for the representative. And now the form has been complete. We've identified the dates, and now you'll see on the lower right-hand side, we're going to change the workflow. Now you can see in the screen, we have two options, one close past and close failure. If we do close past, that means it's been signed off and we can proceed to the next stage. That also means that the clerk of work or the customer service representative who did the inspection with the purchaser will then get an email that will allow them to download the signed off inspection with the attached image and the map of the unit that the purchaser just had completed the inspection. And this allows the clerk of work then to email that to the purchaser as a record of the inspection. So in this case, I'm going to click Close Pass. There's a place for a comment, no need to comment here. And it'll ask me, are you sure you want to close this form? And I said, yes, I close. And now you'll notice that the next stage of the inspection is open. If I now go to synchronize, you'll see that the inspection is being synchronized to be uploaded to the main project server. And now if I go into the menu, you'll see I've received a notification. And so the notification shows that there has been an inspection and it's closed pass. If I was the main contractor, I would get a similar message as well. And if I open that up, I can now go back into the form and I can see the inspection that was just completed. I've gone back into the browser. We've already synchronized. So when I go into the browser for the project, I can see in the project dashboard on the lower right hand side, I can see my name as the owner. That means I've created those defects. If I click on this, I can navigate, and now I can see unit B0101, that there's 2 defects there. I can click on it and navigate directly to the issues. And you'll notice that when I do this, it brings me right to the drawing, and again, I can see both of those defects. However, right now what I really want to do is I want to communicate the inspection to the purchaser. And so now I go into the inspection finder, I click on inspection finder, and it'll bring up all the inspections. And it so happens that the first one, because it was the last one that was done, was for unit B0101, and you notice that you can search for inspections by your name, by unit number, so even if you have lots of inspections, it's very easy to navigate. But now I go to the defect rectification work inspection, and you'll see 3 little dots. If I click on that, I can either notify users, I can send this inspection to whoever I want who's on the list, whether it's a contractor or a subcontractor. But in this case, I just want a copy of the inspection, so I click Download PDF. And as it's downloading, it will bring me into the form, and now I see the form where I've signed it with the purchaser. If I keep scrolling, you'll see the unit location with the defects on it and the units. And now you can take this form, you can save it as a file and send it to the purchaser. Okay, now due to my subscription, I have a notice of any time a contractor or subcontractor fixes one of the defects that I've assigned, and I received an email alerting me to that. So I'm now going to go back into the browser, and you can see I have got notifications here as well telling me that the issues have been fixed. But now let's go to the unit, and if I go into unit B101, I can see in fact the contractor has fixed the defects. So if I open them up, I can see that there's a history here. It looks like they replaced the fan and upgraded it because the purchaser wanted a dark one, not a white one. So that looks fine. I can enlarge it further if I want to see a little bit more detail. And here again is the original defect with the no light fixture. And if I look at the history now, I can see it's now fixed. So what I'm going to do now is switch to inspection mode. I'll go back to the inspection that we did earlier, where we signed off. Now you'll see the DRW completion. If I click on the plus button, it brings up the form. And here there's a mandatory field because when you communicate this to the purchaser, you want them to be able to reference the appropriate DNF number. And since the DNF number is assigned automatically by the system, we're not going to have the system assign it here. We have to actually type it in ourselves. So I happen to know this is number 81, and the date of the notification is July 30th, and I'm the representative, and I sign this, close. Now again, we're going to want to attach the issues to this particular form because there's no issues attached currently. Go back into the form. Again, we're going to highlight these, and again you'll notice it subtly changes color. So now I go back in, and I see the issues are now fixed here. So right now you're just seeing the two original defects. When we print the form, you'll see that it'll show the whole history. So let's go ahead and close past this. It'll again prompt me if I'm sure I'm going to close the item. This is important because now it opens up the next form. And the next form is only going to be used in 15 days if, when I communicate this to the purchaser, they have not acknowledged or come back with a request to actually do the inspection. So we'll get that in just a moment. So I'll close it at this point, and I'll synchronize. And now you see the inspections are being synchronized. So when I go back into the other form, we will see, when I go back into the other form, we'll see that there is a new inspection process had been completed. DRW completion notice to the purchaser. And just as before, I go into the browser for the project. I scroll down to Inspection Finder, and I find my particular inspection, which is B0101. I can see the inspection has closed past and the DRW completion has closed past. So again, I look for those three dots at the end of that. I download the PDF, and what will happen at this point is the form, drawing, and the issues are all listed there. So if I scroll through this, I can see the clerk of work has signed off. I can see the drawing with the two fixes, and now in the attached I see the original issue, and I can also see the remedy. You'll also note that both the contractor and the clerk of works or users from Gamuda would be able to take pictures, and that whole workflow history would be captured here. When we created the DRW completion notice and sent it to the purchaser on July 30th, we made a note in our calendar to check back in 14 days. Let's assume for a moment we have not heard back from the purchaser, so now we're ready to send the second notice to the purchaser. So you see in our workflow you've got DRW completion 2.5. This is actually the second notice. If I click on it, again, we populate it with the correct DNF number for tracking purposes. We put the original date and the new date of notification, so we're notifying on the 14th. We sign it, and again, we've attached the defects. That has to be done with each form, and that will show any fixes and the whole workflow. So if there's additional photographs or information, again, that will be captured. So if I now go into the form, I say done. Now I'm changing the workflow, and I'm again close past. Again, it will remind me whether I want to close this form. I choose close, and now it's open for the last stage of the defect rectification process. Okay, now we're moving forward. We have notified the contractor that the remedy wasn't acceptable. We now can go into the plan after receiving an alert that the issue was fixed. We go back into inspection mode, navigate to the unit, open up the inspection, where we see the final acceptance was automatically reopened when there is a failure. So I open it again. We identify the number. This time it's completely accepted. So we're accepting number 462. And that is one, last remaining one. No rejected. Purchaser, again, is Alex. And today's date, let's say it's August 30th at this point. And now you can see we've already attached the remedy. It's now showing closed. So now we can change the workflow, and now it's closed pass. So with this now, you'll see the entire workflow has been closed. It moves from open to closed. I show this as a completed workflow. The DRW work process, we can go back into our inspection finder in the browser. You'll see the first acceptance here was a closed fail. The second one was a closed pass. So this is going to be the final notification that we send the purchaser and our record that the work was completed. So again, I click on the three dots, I download the PDF, and you'll see when I download the PDF, it'll open up the form. And this time we're showing that inspection was successful. We completed it. We had one item left, which was unit item 461, or excuse me, 462. It was accepted and signed off by the purchaser. And it'll show, again, it's grayed out, which means it's closed off. It's signed off by the purchaser. And it'll show the original defect and then all the remedies, including the most current one, which was changing the light fixture to match the other ones in the room. So with that, you should be able to then see a report that this was a completed DRW process for that particular unit.